Hello, third graders. I am going to read a book to you called The Spooky Tale of Prewitt Peacock. This is what it looks like. The Spooky Tale of Prewitt Peacock. And notice the word tail is T-A-I-L, so that's talking about his tail, not tail as in a story. Okay, that's a homophone. So T-A-I-L is the tail that animals have. T-A-L-E, if it was spelled that way, would be tail as in a story. So the Spooky Tale of Prewitt Peacock. We are going to do sequencing with this book. So you need to get out this page from your packet for the week. First, next, then last. So pause the video and make sure you have this packet ready with a pencil. When you're good to go, I am going to read the story, and we are going to put events in sequential order. Sequential means sequence. We're going to put them in sequence order. So from the beginning to the end. So these words on your page here and what I posted here are sequencing words. They really help us explain the order that things happened. So we're going to look at what first happened in the book, next, after that, then what happened, and last. We did this last week when we tracked character traits using the sequenced order, how the character changed. This time we're going to do events that happen in the story. So as I read, I want you to think about what's happening. So when we're done, we can put the events in order and you can fill out your sheet, which I'll help you with in a little bit, okay? So the Spooky Tale of Prewitt Peacock. This takes place in a jungle. So think about what a jungle looks like and sounds like so you can visualize as I read. Prewitt was a wild peacock who lived far out in the jungle where most wild peacocks lived. However, Prewitt was not as proud as a peacock, for he had nothing at all to be proud of. A peacock's great pride was in his glorious tail with all the beautiful blue-green eye spots. Prewitt's tail was no more than a few scraggly feathers and only 2 eye spots. His was indeed a sad tale, and Prewitt was indeed a sad peacock. Phineas was the proudest of peacocks, but then he had the most fanciful tail with many more beautiful eye spots than the others, so he was naturally the leader of the flock. Wherever they went, Phineas always strutted proudly at the head of the procession with his tail fanned out in full glory. Last, and by far the least, came Prewitt with his scraggly tail dragging behind him. But when it came to facing a tiger, all the peacocks were scared. They were all equally scared. So there's Phineas and all the peacocks and Prewitt. Fortunately, the peacocks had but one tiger to worry about. That was Travis, a scrawny, toothless old fellow. Other tigers had better things to do than chase peacocks and end up with a mouthful of feathers. But toothless old Travis could no longer afford to be choosy. He was down to such small game as toads and tadpoles. To him, a peacock would be a fancy feast, if he could ever catch one. For such an old cat, he was pretty spry and ever so sly. So the peacocks always kept an eye cocked for old Travis. The second he made his leap, they all took off like a shot to go fluttering into a treetop. It was always a close call. Once the peacocks had recovered from their fright, the first thing they did was check their tails for fear that they might have lost a feather. Losing a tail feather was always heartbreaking for a peacock. Prewitt's scraggly nothing of a tail was something he would never need to worry about. At least, so he thought. But then Prewitt was in for a surprise. His tail had more growing to do. Much more. One day he noticed that the eye spots had doubled in size and fierce black eyebrows had sprouted just above them. And yet that was not the end of the tail. It continued to feather out. Before long, a jagged mouth appeared just below the enormous eyes. Then finally sprang out a pair of feathery arms with wild, clutching claws. "My tail has gone wild," exclaimed Prewitt. "It's turned into a green-eyed monster. What a terrible tail." But then, after all, he sighed, "I grew it, so I suppose I'll just have to get used to it. I only hope the other peacocks can too." So here's his tail looking like a monster. The other peacocks paid so little attention to Prewitt that a week had passed before they discovered his tail had gone wild. When they did, it hit them all at once. They let go with such terrified shrieks they could be heard all the way to Mandalay. It took 10 minutes for Phineas to settle them down. Then, in a fury, he went to Prewitt. "What's come over you, Prewitt? What on earth have you done to your tail?" he squawked. "Nothing," said Prewitt. "It just grew this way." "The thing is downright spooky," said Phineas. "It gives me the creeps." "It gives me the creeps too," said Prewitt. "But what can I do?" "Keep it to yourself," said Phineas. "Hold it down. Living out here in the jungle is scary enough without that spooky tales of yours popping up." And there's Phineas yelling at Prewitt. It's not his fault, right? Keeping his tail down was no problem for Prewitt. Since he was not the least bit proud, letting his tail drag the ground had been a long time habit. But this was an entirely different tail, and not one bit droopy. It was springy. One afternoon, to Prewitt's surprise, it sprang up, and there was Phineas, and Phineas was furious. "Prewitt," he shrieked, "what did I tell you?" But, stammered Prewitt, "it's nothing but a bunch of feathers. Feathers can't hurt anyone." "Feathers or not," said Phineas, "it scares the wits out of us. So you either get rid of the thing or leave the flock. Take your choice and let me know first thing in the morning." When Prewitt settled down to roost for the night in a treetop, his head was in a whirl. "As awful as it is," he thought, "my new tail is better than no tail at all. Yet, if I keep it, I must leave the flock and go wandering off all alone. Either way would be so sad. So I'd better sleep on it and then decide in the morning." As Prewitt slept, he dreamed a weird dream. Out of a swirling mist came a teary-eyed elephant with no trunk. Then a sad, long-faced giraffe with no neck, followed by a sheepish-looking camel with no humps, and finally a pitiful peacock with no tail. It was Prewitt, and close behind were the other peacocks, all laughing at him. As the laughter exploded into the wild cackling, the tailless peacock suddenly turned into a lizard and slithered under a rock. The next morning, Prewitt awoke in a cold sweat. After checking his feathers to make sure they were all still there, he fluttered down to the ground to join the flock. "Well," said Phineas, "have you decided? Do you go, or does your tail go?" "We're both staying," said Prewitt. "So there." "Oh, no, you don't," cried Phineas. "Come on, everyone, grab a feather. Off with his tail." As the peacocks closed in with beaks, snapping, Prewitt whirled and took off through the jungle. The chase was on. The peacocks were very poor flyers, so it was more of a fluttering, hopping, running chase. Although Prewitt was a bit smaller with shorter legs, he was a bit quicker. By zigzagging in and out through the trees and darting under bushes and ferns, Prewitt managed to dodge his pursuers. But try as he might, he couldn't shake them. The peacocks kept right on his tail. Finally, in desperation, he headed for an open field. Prewitt figured that they wouldn't dare follow. It was much too great a risk for a peacock to venture into the open. But dare they did. The peacocks were determined to catch Prewitt no matter what, and as he went plowing through the tall grass, they were just a few steps behind and gaining fast. Prewitt was just about to be caught when all of a sudden, what's going to happen? A tiger reared up out of the grass. It was old Travis, and just like that, the chase was over. It was too late to turn back, and with no trees to flutter into, the peacocks were doomed. They were too terrified to move, so they just stood there waiting for the finish. Then, just as the tiger was all set to spring, he let out a yowl of terror. Then, in a panic, old Travis went leaping and bounding away to disappear in the distance. The peacocks were left stunned and bewildered. That means confused. What could ever frighten a tiger? They wondered as they looked frantically about. Then all at once, there it was. Prewitt's spooky tail. When Prewitt caught sight of the tiger, his tail sprung straight up in all of its horror. There was no doubt but what Prewitt's tail had done. It had saved the day. Travis was scared of Prewitt's tail, right? When Phineas finally found his voice, he cried, "Prewitt, Prewitt, how can we ever repay you?" "There's no need to," said Prewitt. "It's nothing I did. It was just my tail." "Just the same," said Phineas, "you deserve a reward. How would you like to take my place? We would be proud to have you as our leader." "Yes, yes," cried all the others, ever so proud. "Oh, no," said Prewitt. "I'm not bossy enough to be the leader. Besides, I'd rather wander just about as I please." "Well, then would you mind if we tag along?" asked Phineas, "just to keep you company?" "I don't mind at all," said Prewitt. "Tag along if you like." From that day on, wherever Prewitt went, the other peacocks followed close behind, very close. And with so many faithful followers, Prewitt finally agreed to be their leader. They were behind him 100%. Of course, Prewitt knew why, but just the same, he couldn't help but be proud. Now, at last, Prewitt was truly as proud as a peacock. Okay, so I'm going to share some events that happened in the story. I'm going to put them out of order though. Your job is to fill them in the right order on your sequencing worksheet. And then I'm going to show you my answers and you can check your work and see if we have the same. Okay, so I'm gonna stick these up. They're gonna be out of order though, so you're gonna have to move them around. So first we have the event that the peacocks wanted Prewitt to be their leader and they followed him. So there's one event that happened in the story. Prewitt's tail scared Travis. There's another event. Prewitt's tail grew and went wild. And our last event, Phineas told Prewitt he had to leave the flock or get rid of his tail. Okay, so there's 4 events that happened in the story. They are out of order though. You right now need to determine which happened first, second, third, and last. And you need to fill them in the right order on your sheet. So what I want you to do, once you understand the directions, you're going to pause the video and I'm going to leave it just like this so you can pause and see the writing. You can write down your answers in the correct order on your worksheet. When you're all done, I want you to press play and I'm going to put them in order and see if you put them in the same order as me, okay? So everyone go ahead and pause right now and fill in your worksheet. Okay, Hopefully you filled in your worksheet if you're press and play and you're coming back. So let's see. The first thing that happened in the story. We have the Peacocks wanted Prewitt to be their leader and follow him. That did not happen first. That happened towards the end, right? Prewitt's tail scared Travis. Okay. That happened like somewhere in the middle, right? Not first though. Prewitt's tail grew and went wild. Or we have Phineas told Prewitt that he had to leave the flock or get rid of his tail. Well, I know this happened after this. So Prewitt's tail grew and went wild was the first event that we tracked down. So if you put that first, good job. Okay, next what happened? Was it Prewitt's tail scared Travis? Was it the Peacocks wanted Prewitt to be their leader and followed him? No. Was it Phineas told Prewitt he had to leave the flock or get rid of his tail? Well, after Prewitt's tail grew and went wild, then Phineas told Prewitt he had to leave the flock or get rid of his tail. So this should be what you put for second in the next. All right, now we have two events left. Prewitt's tail scared Travis, and the Peacocks wanted Prewitt to be their leader and follow him. Well, I know that this was the last event that happened. I know that the Peacocks wanted Prewitt to be their leader and followed him. That was last. So let's see, Prewitt's tail scared Travis. Does that fit here? Let's double check our work and make sure. Okay, so first Prewitt's tail grew and went wild. Next, Phineas told Prewitt he had to leave the flock or get rid of his tail. Then Prewitt's tail scared Travis when they were running through trying to get rid of his tail. And last, the Peacocks wanted Prewitt to be their leader and follow him. Out of these four events in the story, is this the right order that they happened in? Yes, it is. So if you, on your worksheet, wrote these events in that order, then you are absolutely correct. So you should have first, Prewitt's tail grew and went wild. Next, Phineas told Prewitt he had to leave the flock or get rid of his tail. Then Prewitt's tail scared Travis, the tiger. And last, the Peacocks wanted Prewitt to be the leader and followed him. That's our sequence order. So often when we do sequence order, we look at the events and they're all jumbled up and we need to put them in order. It's very important for retelling what happens in a story and understanding what happens in a story, okay? We're gonna keep working on sequence. Good job, you guys.